In 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Good morning. Welcome to 13th County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It's Wednesday, March 17th, 2021, 10:08 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards and Commissioner Carolina Mejia are also present. We have the County Manager, Mayor Chavez, and Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell. Today's topic is space needs. The public can follow along this work session through our Thurston County YouTube channel or by conference call at 360-252-9020, PIN 1234. Turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the space needs conversation the board had back in the planning session of January 29, 2021. And also there was a follow-up conversation related to a space needs study that we introduced to the board. The board took an action to take it out of the board's agenda. And the board wanted to have additional conversations related to that particular space needs analysis report. So I would like to suggest that perhaps to put that aside, because I believe the board at that point, based on my sense, was not necessarily interested in moving forward with that analysis without having a larger understanding as to some of the different moving pieces that you would like to see related to addressing the space needs. So with your concurrence, maybe put that aside, that conversation, maybe dive into a proposal the staff has for you, and we have a series of plans in front of you as well as documentation. Will that be okay?
Yes, sir.
So, and again, follow up to the space needs conversation, and the main objective is how we're going to be able to create additional space based on the conditions they will have, absent going to, requesting the voters for a new courthouse. That is not part of the preview. This is not part of that conversation. And the board has not even begun or started revisiting that conversation. This is really an attempt to see what we can do within our means. And that's what it is. And one of the main objectives, I believe, was considering everything that perhaps could be on the table related to whether it's moving offices and departments that create mainly additional room for the courts. And that seems to be the driving force behind all this. So the result of that, we have a proposal for you today. And allow me to walk you through that proposal, hopefully, and then maybe if you can hold your questions to the end, will that be possible? And then you can probably hear the overall plan that we're presented to you today. And then it's going to take us maybe 15, 20 minutes to walk you through this plan. And then at that point, we'll engage on the board with a conversation. And then we may ask the board what the next steps the board would like to for the staff to take. So I'm going to walk you through the 11 by 17 sheets that is attached with you that has some sort of a sketch. It is a floor plan sketches. Please don't take any lines they have put in the paper as an architectural design or not. It's just a concept. Take this as a concept. So, and this is related to an available building located in the 3000 Pacific Avenue. And that is located in front of the Inner City Transit headquarters offices. And it's currently vacant. And that particular building has the capacity of 90,000 square feet, divided in 2 different floors. So we can probably make the assumptions 45,000 on the first floor and 45,000 on the second floor. That's the beginning of the conversation. And I will ask Robin to chime in as we move along on this whole presentation, please. So what you see before you, the concept is to move general government out of the courthouse complex. General government on this scenario includes all the offices and departments located in Building 1 of the courthouse. Also includes HR, which is located in Building 4, as well as Financial Services, which is also located in Building 4. That is the premise of those first two sheets, okay? Because this is going to be how the different domino effect pieces will come to play. So if you look at this first sheet, that's the first floor of the 3000 Pacific Avenue. And this is just conceptually, you see the assessor, the auditor, and the treasurer has 22,000 square feet out of that area. And the concept of this will be they will have in the first floor a public hub as to how the public can come and conduct business related to the assessor, the treasurer, the auditor, as well as permitting. As you see here, CPED also includes 20,000 square feet, as well as public works and public health, which is also part of the permitting process. And also in this concept is what we have, the new room 280. So everything is a public access on the first floor, okay? So then moving into the next sheet, that will be the second floor of the building, 3000 Pacific Avenue. And in here, conceptually, we have the Board of Equalization. It has 2,000 square feet. CPID planning, no permitting, it has 4,000 square feet. The auditor financial services that we move out of building 4 will be occupying 5,000 square feet. IT that is currently located on the basement of building 1 will move into this floor. Human resources that is currently located in building 4 will move into this floor. And we have the central services in budget will take 4,000 square feet. And geodata also will be using 2,000. And the office of the Board of County Commissioners will be will occupy 5,000 square feet. So on the back of your packet, we also included, just to give you a perspective, because I know you're going to be asking me, what is the current square footage that each of the offices and departments hold? So this is a cheat sheet that I have included to you that we introduced that back on January 29th. So that will give you an indication. So each of the square footages conceptually is more than we currently use on all the many different offices and departments. Go ahead.
So I was also just going to say that more includes training rooms, a computer lab, small conference rooms, and other things. The BOE would have an appeal hearing room. And when they're not using that, we could use that as a conference room. On the first floor, the Board of County Commissioners meeting room is significantly larger than what you have today and would provide a large meeting space. So we assumed, the need to have space to train and meet in all of this.
Yeah, and also that's a good point. And related to the commissioner's office, this will allow for the board to consider if when the time comes, if a 5-member board will be, a part of the concept, so it will allow the space to grow into that. Even on the second floor, the 5,000 square feet. Just to give you an indication, if you see on this cheat sheet, the Board of County Commissioners currently using 3,700 square feet, which includes this room 280. So that gives an indication as to what the opportunities will be to add additional space. And each of the offices and departments are in the same place, meaning they provides an opportunity to have a small growth in the space and allow for support spaces to function within those offices. So That's step number one in terms of all the different moving pieces. Moving it to the 3000 Pacific Avenue. Then page number 3, we're moving into building 1. After building 1 is vacated, then this proposal is to bring the clerk's office out of building 2, and it will be located on the first floor of this building, building 1. Also, we'll bring pretrial services into the first floor of building 1. And as you can see, it still has additional vacant space on the first floor to do some support space needs, whether it's a conference room, a public meeting room, that is located. So, and it does allow for growth, certainly for pretrial services and the clerk's office. Then the next page is looking at the second floor of building 1. And the proposal is to bring the offices, the prosecuting attorney's offices, both the criminal and civil offices, to consolidate on second floor of building 1, on this where we're currently located. I believe that is a long-term objective of the prosecutor, and that will probably accomplish that. So that means we will move the civil division out of the building 5 which into second floor. So we accomplished that.
So before you go on, Romero, I do just want to mention that the cubicle layouts that you see on some of these drawings is what exists today.
Yeah.
Don't pay any attention to that. We would completely redo that.
Yeah, thank you. And this is just overall raw square footage. And each of those offices will have the opportunity to grow, because I believe that is the need of the space. Moving into the next page, and that leaves, this is the basement of building 1, where currently IT is located, and that will probably stay vacant, but it will provide opportunity for facilities. They can probably facilitate their operations in there, but it will remain vacant for future growth or future needs. Robin?
So just to chime in on that, facilities currently has a fabrication room where they do a lot of the pre-work for the work that needs to be done in the campus building. And this proposal would have them keeping the fabrication room and then also providing office space. This isn't going to be a fast thing. The whole domino effect and work on these buildings will take time. So we would house our contractors in this area too.
So that is the building number 1 concept. So moving into building 2, that's the next page on your attachment. That is the clerk's office moves out of building 2, and also the prosecutor attorneys moves out of building 2 from the second floor. And then building 2 will be considered Superior Court building. They will allow to expand on the current clerk's space, as well will allow them to expand on the second floor where the prosecutor's office is located. Okay. Moving on to building 3. So with all the shifting and the domino effects, again, building 2 will become Superior Court building. Moving on to building 3. In building 3, we have a district court and the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office, as you know, is looking to consolidate their offices. So we assume the sheriff's office will move out of building 3. And I'm going to revisit the sheriff's office here when I'm done with this proposal. So that will create building 3 for district court. And that will be an additional space for district court to utilize. The conclusion of this, before I move to the other buildings, will be on building number 1 in this building. The first floor will be including the clerk's office, pretrial services, with additional space available for growth.
Say that again.
On the first floor of this building 1, it will be the clerk's office and pretrial services.
Okay.
And additional space on the first floor. On the second floor will be the office of the prosecuting attorney's office on building 1. And the basement of building 1 will remain as facility support. Building number 2 will be Superior Court building. Building number 3 will be District Court building. So then we move into building 4, and that's where HR is located. The proposal is to bring drug court, which is currently in a lease space. We'll bring it into a county-owned building that will be on the first floor of building 4. You have in here the resource hub, which continues to be part of the conversation, but also will allow for expansion, if you see, because I believe there is additional space on building 1, first floor. So that provides the opportunity to grow within on the hub, okay? And that is building 4, floor 1. And the next page, then we'll move public defense out of building 6 into the second floor of building 4. And again, this approach, all the offices and departments on building involved in this moving pieces will have a net gain of square footage, because that was, and again, that was the main objective as to how we can create additional space for the offices and departments.
So I'm going to chime in and say that this leaves a lot of vacant space on the first floor of building 4. So if public defense needed greater space, or you wanted to expand the resource hub, or, you know, any one of these things, there's still room to grow in building 4 as well.
A good point. Maybe at this point we'll create at least a space to work with synergies with some of the programs the City of Olympia has.
Right.
And that has been part of the conversation of the municipal court as to how some of the programs can be consolidated with the county. So in terms of the space and building 4, it allows to do that. So with this approach, we have 2 vacant buildings, building 5 and building 6. Let me go back to the sheriff's office. I just floated the idea with sheriff that perhaps they could move into both buildings, building 5 and building 6. He seems to be amicable to the idea. Obviously, he didn't commit to that, to the concept. But I wanted to make sure that I don't overstep my bounds by, that I did have a conversation with the sheriff about this potential option to move the sheriff's office to building 5 and building 6. He seems to be amicable because it allows even to consolidate, moving the operations out of town water, consolidating those 2 buildings, and also will allow him to separate. He was talking about evidence and all this stuff, and allow us to separate between those 2 buildings. And the 2 buildings are separated by a landscape strip. Really, that's what it is. So that is the concept at this point. There is an additional work with the sheriff's office if this is a plan that moves forward to find storage, somewhat of a warehouse for to store their equipment. And that needs to be further research at that point. At this point, I don't have a plan to do this. So that took me just about 28 minutes. Do you like to add anything, Robin?
Nope. That, I guess that I do want to add one thing, and that is, this is just something that could work. We've really not spent a lot of time talking to offices and departments. We certainly haven't looked at the specific uh, layouts of any given building. But it's something that we could make work, or we could make something that looked a little like this, but different work. It's basically a proof of concept type of approach. Just to show that if we moved everyone out of buildings 1 and 4, that the remaining space would be adequate to house all of our offices and departments.
So on the documentation that we attached to your packet this morning, there is two 11 by 7, 8.5 by 11 pages, which is just the verbal description of what just went through with you this morning.
Right.
So I know the board has a lot of questions. I know that some of the questions may be the financial elements of all this. I believe there are some options the staff would like to provide related to that. But I will stop there to give the board enough time to answer and to ask any questions. And again, please look at this. This is a 30,000 foot level concept. This is not an attempt to have architectural drawings for your consideration this morning.
Commissioner Mejia, let's start with you.
Okay, so my first question is, how much is the atrium? Or how much would the yearly lease be?
So on average, in the first few years, the lease would be approximately $2.5 million a year. And because most of what you're moving into that space would be offices and departments paid for with the general fund, I'm estimated that approximately 70% of that would be general fund. We will have savings in lease costs if we move the sheriff and the drug court out of lease space. But it won't be $2.5 million.
And tomorrow I'm going to be presenting a proposal related to the new federal allocation the county will be receiving. And as part of that plan, I'm not prepared to give you that right now. I'm sorry. Maybe we give you some options as to how you perhaps you may consider overcoming the impacts to the general fund. So financially, I think there is options for you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And my second question, it was, will it fall between the $50 million bond that we talked about, and then would it also, could we fix the buildings if it looks like we're gonna stay here long term? It's like, I know that to fix the building, I think on the report it said 26 million. Could we set that apart to fix the building 1, 2, or the buildings in general that we own currently?
Yes, that will probably be the first answer to your question, because on this concept, what it does is if the board considers issuing the $50 million bond, that will be all the available funding that can be to invest on upgrading the facilities, as well as investing on the needed remodel to accommodate this move here on the campus. So this could be, the Law and Justice Hub or the Law and Justice Center with this proposal. So the 50 million, it will not be entirely, I think there's a potential building that might be taking some of that. But for the majority will be exactly what you stated, Commissioner Mejia, to invest in upgrading the buildings, and as well as accommodating the remodel needed for this proposal.
Commissioner, that was a major reason why some of the projects have been delayed, is because in the absence of this type of plan, it didn't make sense. Now that if we know we're doing something to upgrade the building in a certain way, then we'll fold, the long-term maintenance into
I think Commissioner Mejia's connection.
froze and then disappeared.
Sorry, yeah, it kicked me out there for a second.
Did you
Okay.
hear what Commissioner Messer stated? Commissioner Mejia?
I did not. What did he state? Could you?
So I was just following up and saying that is exactly why some of the maintenance projects that we've got lined out have not gone forward to this point, because we didn't have a plan like this agreed upon by the board. If we were, and again, I'm not presuming anything, but if we were to have a plan like this, then the remodeling that would be required, the maintenance and upgrade to the building would be folded into that and be done more efficiently and effectively than doing them all in advance, having no idea what we were going to do with these buildings in 5 or 10 years. So that'll all be part, hopefully, of our planning and
Yes, sir.
spending plan. Okay, go ahead, back to you, Commissioner Mejia. You had anything else?
I do not have any more questions.
Okay, I'll go to Commissioner Edwards then on this.
Robin, you mentioned that it was going to be $2.5 million a year for the lease. How many years do we have to sign the lease for to get that rate?
On a 7-year lease.
So right
And
off the bat, it would be
Get a
7
break
years.
If we did, yes, and we would get a break if we did longer.
When you say a break, any idea what that means? 10% if we go 10 years, or 20%?
I don't think it's that much, no.
No, nothing like that. Okay.
Maybe I'd just like to add, following to that, Commissioner Edwards, also what I think is going to provide an opportunity to negotiate tenant improvements with the owner of this building. And negotiating some tenant improvements, because I believe the lease the owner has right now includes tenant improvements to suit the needs of the tenant. So if we're able to negotiate right up front some of the tenant improvements where the county can pay ahead some of the tenant improvements, the lease most likely could be reduced. So it's all that the next steps that we could probably explore if this concept is amicable to the board.
Okay. What about Mary Hall's building? When are we going to find something out about that, and how many square feet could that offer?
We made the offer as you authorized, and we are waiting for a response from the landlord.
Okay.
We should hear this week.
You're talking about the ballot center, right, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that is part of this plan as well, yes.
Okay. When we talk about space needs, and then we tie that in with the pandemic issue and what we're going to be faced with for a while, when that space social distancing came about, they came up with 6 feet, and then they were talking about maybe 9 feet for a while. They even talked about 12 feet for a while. Now I see they're talking about 3 feet. So there's a lot of unknowns that play into the equation that we just don't know what's coming down the pike at this point in time. The business about the 5 commissioners or 3 commissioners, that kind of hinges on whether or not the census comes to a certain number or not. We won't know that until September. Is that when that's coming out?
Yes, sir.
And I just want to pass on what happened to me as a brand new commissioner. When I came into office, we got right in the middle of 2 things. One of them was a convention center that made absolutely no sense to me. but I tried to participate in the game because I was a new commissioner. I wanted to play team ball, if you will. And boy, was that a flop. We went around to the different municipalities and talked to them a little bit about it. I was never sure, because commissioners never get to visit between themselves, what that was really all about, what the end game was. And then just shortly thereafter, it was a move towards, I could see it coming towards the courthouse activity, and then pretty soon it turned. It was pretty obvious it was going to head downtown. So how those things all came about, I just want to pass that on to a brand new commissioner that's amongst us, that's faced with the same thing that I was faced with when I came on as a new commissioner. And I think Commissioner Menser, when he came on with a new commissioner, got right in the middle of some courthouse activity. So I would just caution, until we have some of these unknowns. I think we ought to be looking at this from 50,000 feet rather than 30,000 feet. I don't think we ought to rush. I'm hoping we're talking to other providers. I don't know that. But I'm just going to give this a bit of a cautious vent, that we need to have a lot of discussion as this moves forward. See how it all plays out, hear from different individuals that are going to be in the game. There's been this talk about centralization and decentralization of county government. So where does it all fit? The only thing we know for sure is we do have a courthouse campus here that's a heck of a nice location. We've got a public works facility that's a heck of a nice location. And for a health department, I don't know, I'm not knowledgeable enough, but it's in a pretty good area. It's right by the hospital. So it's in that medical center area for a health department. A lot of things to think about. And so I'll just let it go at that for right now. I'm going to be very cautious as we move forward. That's all. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, though.
Okay. I guess I'll just give my comments on it. I support this approach because of, as I think I've been consistent, I've never seen another plausible plan B, so to speak, meaning plan B besides building a new courthouse that's consolidated. I've never seen another conceptual approach that would get us around basically doing what this essentially does, which is building one out, and using the courtroom space is very specialized. So we want to use what we've already configured for courtrooms and expand that. And the way to do that is by expanding it here. Because office space is easier, I think, and cheaper to configure than courtroom space. So setting aside the whole part about the sheriff's office, because that's brand new and I have no opinion about that. And I think there are a lot of options there. But everything else that you described, to me, is pretty locked in stone that if we're not going to go back to plan A, this is the basic structure of plan B. It leaves a couple of questions in my mind. Well, first, let me address Commissioner Edwards' point. So in terms of rushing, everything he said is valid, and that is why this board is not, from my perspective, that's why we are not revisiting Plan A and revisiting putting the courthouse initiative back on the ballot, for all the reasons he said. So to me, the fact that we're doing it this way is an acceptance and an accommodation of all those factors. But I don't think that this approach is staying within our means. It is doing things at an absolute, the most cost-effective way we can, not building anything new, using our existing resources to meet space needs. So I don't have a problem, because we're not building a new building, and because the county is growing. I don't have, and that's not going to change. It's just the nature of where Thurston County sits in the greater Pugetopolis and a lot of economic pressures and demographic factors. This county will continue to grow, and so we're going to need to do this. And I agree with Commissioner Edwards. I mean, my first 2 weeks in office, I had a binder with all these proposals, and I had to make a vote on a location for a courthouse. I'd been tracking it. It wasn't something I wasn't prepared for, but it certainly was a big decision. But if you look at county government, we've been going at this for getting close to a decade now. So I don't think that we'll be accused, and I don't think we'll be accused of doing anything too briskly. My big questions, I guess, at this point are the finances of it all, obviously, and we're going to visit that in more great detail starting tomorrow and ongoing. So just making sure that I understand how we would be able to afford this through what mechanisms. And I have talked to the county manager about some of these ideas. So I have a slight preview of what's coming, and I think there are options, but the board's going to need to hear them together and talk about them. And then my second question is just about this particular building. So this was a great exercise to go through because it shows us what 90,000 square feet of additional lease space could then do in terms of the dominoes and the pieces. And whether that has to be 90 or it could be 75 or it could be 110, I don't know, but it gives us a sense that that's kind of a ballpark of what would be really useful and valuable to our overall needs. So I guess my question comes down to 3000 Pacific Avenue. It looks like it's viable, but is it the only place that we could find 90,000 square feet? Is there something about it that's configured in a way that we particularly like? If that's true, do we have then a timeline that we have to operate under? Or else, we're going to be left with no other option that meets our needs in the same way? Or is it just an example of what 90,000 square feet could do, and it could be 90,000 square feet somewhere else? So I guess kind of talking about that is a question. And Robin, looks like you have something that.
I have an answer to that question because the board had asked us to look around and see if there were properties available that would house everyone in building 1. There are 2 viable properties. There is the 3000 Pacific Avenue, also called the Atrium. And you see the layout and possibilities for that. It could house buildings 1 and 4. The other property is on Chandler Court. It is 2 buildings. Together, they are only a little under 50,000 square feet, or right at 50,000. We didn't look at that particular property on this kind of a layout concept idea. We looked at the Atrium. We could do the same thing for the 2 Chandler Court buildings, but really those are the only 2 viable properties in the city of Olympia. There is space all broken up throughout the Plum Street buildings. But no one would be together, and there wasn't enough single space for any particular, we couldn't have the auditor, the treasurer, and the assessor all together, even in one single building. Mm-hmm. It would be all broken up, and that did not seem desirable. And then there's the building on Capitol Way that is old and would not accommodate parking. It could house the people in building 1, but it would not meet our needs right in downtown Olympia. So really, there are 2 buildings that are available at this time.
So thank you. I was curious about Plum because when you drive by there from the street, it looks empty, but it sounds like it's not completely that way. And then, that's the one directly across the street from where the commissioners had voted to place the new courthouse. So there was a logic to that because it was near the freeway and all of that stuff. But so if I accepted what you just said and Pacific Avenue is the obvious logical choice. What is it? I mean, obviously, we don't have any option agreement or anything in place. I mean, what is the timeline by which that building is going to be marketed and probably leased to somebody else? I mean, what do we need to be thinking about if the board were extremely excited about this and yeah, that's perfect, let's do that. What are we under in terms? What do we know about the time constraints of that building?
I know that it is on the market now. I do not, beyond that, I really can't comment on the timeline.
Are they done with all their renovations that they were going to do?
Their renovations will be at the desire of the new tenant. They want to work with the new tenant.
The building inside is gutted.
Yeah.
It's really is a black canvas, so there's not going to be a demo type of cost. And since the owner is interested on do the tenant improvement suit to need to the tenant, and that's where I believe it creates an opportunity for this. And I think the attractive option on this is truly consolidation of general government to a single location.
Okay, I'll circle back around. Commissioner Mejia, anything follow up on all of that? We've got about 11 minutes left in scheduled on today's.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be quick. For me, I mean, I think it is kind of a priority to make sure we get our ducks in a row. It's a priority for me to fix the buildings we have, and I don't think that's going to happen unless we have a plan to go forward. So that's definitely a priority for me. Let's get everything resolved so we can start fixing what we have and making sure that building 1, 2, and 3 are up to date and up to par. I have a question in regards to the space needs assessment there with the 26 million. Does that include the jail space being renovated as well, Robin? Do you know?
For the flex unit? No, the 50 million did not include the flex unit.
Okay, but yes, it looks nice. I actually kind of want to drive past the building now and see what it would look like. And schedule a tour of it. Sometimes maybe looking at a building in person helps actually visualize things.
We could do that.
Yeah, we can accommodate whatever the board likes to do.
Yeah, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Mejia might want to do that. I went there with the group when we were considering it as a resource hub location. So I've actually toured the building, and I've seen it again the second time since they've started to gut it out and stuff. So I have that, but yeah, you're right. It is useful to see it with your own eyes.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, would you be open to a tour?
Sure. The only thing about tours is it becomes a public meeting, but
right, which
makes it kind of tough if we do it together.
We'll schedule it on different times.
Yeah, something. I have a
no, we can accommodate together. It's just a matter of making sure that we post it on the master calendar. So that should not be an impediment. But certainly, I mean, to make matters easier, we can probably schedule 2 different tours.
It can't be an impromptu tour, but it can be certainly.
Right.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, any last comments or questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to a Plan B, if we were to head to the Plan B area, over the last 40 years, prior county commissioners have bought adjoining and adjacent property to this existing campus with the idea of doing an expansion. That was their whole intent of buying that property. I really think that there is a potential that we could partner with a private enterprise. I can tell you how I did it when I was sheriff and had a helicopter program that didn't cost the taxpayers much. And the law, there was no enabling law, but there was no prohibitive law to prevent us from doing that. And I had lawyers that gave me opinions on both sides, and it worked fine for 10 years and served the community. Anyway, we don't have time to get into that. But if we were to build a building ourselves, we're limited on what we could lease out, for an example, so we could move into extra space. And that would be, I think we're limited to 10%. If we partnered with someone and we built over between HR and maybe the credit union, we took that whole area over there and built a very nice courthouse in partnership with a private group of some type or another. And maybe they paid for the first or the top 4 floors, and we paid for the bottom 4 floors, with an agreement that every 25 years we got to expand the courts and continue to keep that as a court complex. That would be it. It would be just the criminal justice component. I don't know that the sheriff needs to have a floor there, or that type of thing, but prosecutors, judges, and defense. I think we could end up with a heck of a building, not much cost, have possibility for expansion over the next 100 years, because I would definitely like to see us do something towards solving the future growth problems. And then see what that has to offer. We haven't looked at anything there other than a few non-committal conversations I've had with some business people. Do you think it's possible? Would you be interested? That type of thing. So I think we need to explore all our options. I think this campus, it survived the '96 earthquake without even quivering. And I think we're in a good spot right here. And initially, I'm not against looking anywhere, but initially, I think we should honor those prior county commissioners that purchased property here with the idea of expanding this campus. So I'll just let it go at that for now.
Okay, well, thank you. And Ramiro, can we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd really like to see what, what I have is you would like to schedule a tour of the 3,000 buildings, Commissioner Mejia and Commissioner Edwards separately, and we will accommodate that as soon as feasible. You heard ideas from Commissioner Edwards this morning, so this is an attempt to be responsive to the board related to Plan B. And really, we would like to hear, what do you want the staff as next steps? Because we can probably explore many different options, because there are many, which each one of those will have a financial aspect, a financial impact. And that will take time. Some of the options the Commissioner Edwards stated, it was part of the initial courthouse assessment. That was one of the options to build and that was a price tag that perhaps at that point the county could not afford. Whether a private partnership is an option, we have not explored that to the detail. So, we can continue to have these conversations, but at some point, if you can give us an indication where we'd like to take the next steps, I will be appreciated.
Another aspect of timing, and Commissioner Mejia is hitting on it, is that these buildings, if we're going to keep using these buildings, they need maintenance. I mean, I agree with some of the citizens that have talked about that. But there's been a logic to why we haven't done them, but that logic is predicated on us working diligently toward an alternative plan. So I do feel a pressure to sketch through a plan so that then we can rationally decide when to do the different upgrade projects, because we know what the medium-term use of these buildings is going to be. So I don't think mucking around with different options for years more is viable, because I feel the pressure to make good decisions about the building maintenance along with the space needs. Those things are coming together. and they're on parallel tracks and they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed this year, in my opinion.
So if,
yeah.
if the board, the majority or unanimous feel this is something that the staff needs to explore further, because there's additional details we need to bring back to you in terms of time and cost, if that's the direction of the board, I will appreciate that.
Well, I think, let the commissioners look at the building and let you present some information about the financial component. And as soon as those two things are done, then the board needs to come back and discuss, and give direction to you.
Okay, sounds good.
So hopefully that can happen, relatively short order.
Yep. We'll start touching the financial aspects tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Okay, it's 10:58 and we're adjourned for this work session.
Thank you, sir.